Hi, Karan. Welcome to Farside. I'm so happy to have you here today. Would love to have you introduce yourself real quick.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so I've been a founder for the last 4 years into Web2, AI, and then moved to crypto 2 years ago, building on crypto social.
Oh, awesome. Okay, wow. Um, tell us like a little more about your background. So I know you worked at Zero X People before, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
curious to hear about like how your journey got started there and why you shifted into like Barcaster.
sure. So, like right out of college, I got into a corporate job, left that after 2 months. So, this was
Oh,
Leisure. Started my first company, ran that for about 2 years. And after that, I was on a break. That's when I met Prasanna. So, he's the person who founded Zero X People. Got introduced, joined as an engineer, became director of engineering, and eventually co-founder and CTO. So yeah, there also we were building like crypto native social network,
mm.
and yeah, it was an amazing journey for about 2 years. And then one fine day, I decided to become more degen and start doing wild things.
Okay, awesome. So, what were some of your like learnings? Because I try to use like Xerox people here and there. Like I really
Yeah.
like the UI, but in terms of like what they're trying to enable, it's still for me like a little bit
Mhm.
unclear. So I'm curious, like,
Yeah.
what were your takeaways from that? Like, is that did you see like some sort of there's a gap here, and this is what I want to like take into, and that's why you started building Wildcard?
Yeah, so I'll answer your first question, like what is zero x people trying to do. It is basically you have on-chain activity across different chains, different ecosystems, and you have multiple identities, multiple wallets. So what they're trying to do is like create a social network out of on-chain activity and put faces behind, like, to wallets, make it easier for people to analyze wallets and do all sorts of things as a single player mode. Yeah, so like in the future of crypto, if you see new chains coming up every day, it will get hard to keep track of what's happening where and who is doing what. So all it simplifies all of that. What I'm trying to do now, and basically was, I saw degen and I saw what Pacman did with Blast, and I was like, if you can come up with a cool economic design on top of something cool, like, people love it and it might actually work. So I basically wanted to do something that was more degen, more crazy. That's why I decided to do something else.
Nice. Okay, very cool. Okay, so tell us a little more about like what Wildcard is and the intention behind it. So when
Sure.
I just to give some background, like when I first saw you drop
Mhm.
Wildcard, I was like, oh my God, there's another social betting app again, right? That was my first uh like basically reaction. And then
Yeah.
I actually got into it and looked into it and I was like, okay, this is different because you kind of it's a positive sum game here, right? So I think that's what really stood out to me. But before we get into like my thoughts, like we'd
Yeah.
love to have you on, like we'd love to understand like why you decided to build Wildcard and like what it is to you.
For sure. So it is like I would call it a more crypto native Farcaster client. So doing all things that are native to crypto, like tipping, buying and selling, speculating, or just betting on things, aligning social incentives in ways of tokens, and buying into each other is basically what I set out to do. I see a gap between. So Farcaster right now is trying to go broad and serve, like, a different set of market, which is like onboard everyone who's on Twitter onto Farcaster and create conversations in
Mm,
every aspect. And I think that's a great move that they're doing. But that leaves a certain segment, including myself. What I felt was like there is this particular segment of people which are crypto natives who like more crazy and wild stuff, and it leaves a niche out that is underserved, in my opinion, which are like the true users who went after these and who did the tipping, and basically crypto native people who like to transact. So I'm just like, out of my own needs and this need being underserved, I felt there is something there that can be explored. The second idea was basically, I looked at fintech and I was looking at degen, and I was like sort of curious what could be a different economic structure that could be designed across it. So there are two things that we did different. One is, so it gets difficult for people to buy keys after a point because it's on a bonding curve and it keeps on getting expensive. So you need more and more capital to just play with it, like to buy a Kobe key or a and some key on fintech, it costs like thousands of dollars. So what we did differently was we fractionalized it. So you can like assume this is more like Trump coin or Bodin. Like you will be able to transact with $10 even at $10 million market caps, and we have kept the speculation part less in the start. So that was the first fundamental change, that everyone should be able to buy in into something. Like I think Ted mentioned this to me in a call, that to be a Swifty you just need to listen to a song. So to be
Right.
a fan of someone, you should be able to like buy it with sense and just like show that my values or my incentives are aligned with this person.
Yeah.
The second basic thing was, in Frentech or in any other alpha, alpha style group chats, there is a promise that the bearer of the token, like the person whose token you're selling, needs to provide you with something extra in a chat
Hmm.
like interface, and keep on doing that. And that is from where the value of the keys is derived. And like what I'm trying to do differently there is, like, we have this whole tipping structure, and they are already active on podcast. So they receive tips for content they're actually creating. So we will distribute 25% of the tips received by a person to their ticket holders, so that the people who are there doesn't have to do anything extra in order for them to be valued. It's in a way their social capital being translated into a token, and you can just like go and say, okay, I align with this person, or I bet on the future of this person, that this guy is my friend. I know he's going to get famous on Warcast or create good content, and I can spend something on it. So this is the surface level that we start with. And eventually there is like a whole new angle to discoverability, which is, because people are showing financialized incentive towards people or other castes, you get a whole new way of discovering content, which is based on which is the most tipped, or in your network these are the most bought keys.
Oh,
And you can just like, now to serve that you actually need a client, and that's where the
yeah.
client part comes in. So all the crazy things you can imagine, like which are the top degen tipped posts, which are the most wild tipped posts, what is hot or something, just like a different take or a crypto native degen take on Farcaster. You can create custom feed, you can solve discoverability for certain aspects. So yeah, that's the whole play. and
Quality
and do wild
control.
things, like we'll support gifs. We added, like, you can search and
Yeah.
post any meme and everything. So just like people can keep asking for features like these, and we just ship it out. Like, you know that's the
Yeah.
bet, like
Wait.
build a cool
Wow.
client.
When you started off Wild, you
Mhm.
posted in Skin in the Game. What was the reason
Yes.
for that?
Nick. So one
Nick.
confirmation is an investor, but more than
Oh.
that, yeah, like more than that, it's like, I've been like, so this was like week one into it. So Nick has contributed a lot to the idea as well. Like
Yeah.
the name Wildcard comes from him.
Oh
Like
wow.
that's like, yeah. And like we basically, so I started off and it was like 1 week into it, probably I got in touch with Nick, and since then we've been like jamming together. And yeah, I also went to his place, stayed there for like 4 days after FarCon. And they've been
Oh
incredibly
wow.
supportive. And yeah, we get on a call like once or twice a week and sort out how we should build it and how do we align incentives and everything else. So yeah.
That's amazing.
uh yeah,
So you had the idea before, like went to Nick about it. You guys kind of built it out, and oh, that is interesting. Very cool stuff. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Nick as well. I'm
amazing
glad
guy.
this kind of right. He's amazing. I'm yet to chat with him, but okay. Wow. Okay, so this last part where you mentioned um, people now, it just promotes discoverability, where you can see the highest tipped cast.
Yeah,
That is a huge unlock because quality control on Farcaster became a very big problem once they opened it up,
yes,
right, to public. And of
yeah,
course, likes now cannot be the metric of what is trending because anything and everything is getting likes. So I
yes,
love this now. Okay, I had no idea that you guys added this as like a new thing.
yeah.
This is the best sort of, I think, quality control mechanism out there at the
Mhm.
moment. Um, and so I was actually gonna ask you, like, do you see yourself as a competitor to Degen? Because
Mhm.
tipping culture now, there's so many different tokens like tipping Degen, like
Yeah,
Wild, and of course there's like a bunch of like other coins as
yeah,
well. But you mentioned that you would also be able to filter out casts that are tipped by Degen
yes.
as well. So I'm curious, like, to hear your take on this. Like, when you started off, of course, degen already exists, right? So do you think you see this as a more of an addition to the tipping culture that degen started, or are you trying to kind of replace that entire mechanism?
So my thesis is like there are going to be not one, but at least 4 to 5 currencies that are gonna take
Hmm.
like that are going to be like broadly like accepted by the ecosystem for different things. I'm a true fan of Degen, and it's one of the reason like airdrop one was one of the reasons I was able to do this, and I got the capital to just like have this extra bet and do it. So yeah, in any way here to like support Degen, and if I can do it in any way, I'll do that and keep it as an integral part of Wildcard. I'll try to do as much as I can. Yeah, so in terms of like there are so many tokens coming out there and what will happen to the future of it. So my version or my prediction of it is basically you will people are trying to capture value, like every channel that is out there wants to capture value out of people that are engaging there. So there are going to be channel economies, but one channel, one token is too fragmented. There are probably going to be like 5 to 7 or 3 to 7 tokens that stand out and in which the economies are built. My aim is like one of them would be wild, so that's like another part. And like yeah, Degen is here to stay. I think I take it's like it's the OG, and like it's like Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
Now that makes sense. Yeah, no, 100% that makes sense. But
I
I'm curious,
definitely
like,
want to
how
get
does
like
the
Degen. I want to get Degen tipping here. So like yeah, once I
oh
reach a
yeah.
point where I can approach them and say like, hey, can you please like let us integrate it and give tips out on your behalf. Would love to do that.
Yeah, honestly, that I think is the best way to go, where you aren't really limiting what the user
Yeah,
can tip, especially like if you're
yeah,
building out Wild as a new WordCast client.
yeah.
Um, it's important that like I think a lot, because like a lot of the times like we people that are building the client kind of force the user to act on a certain
Yes.
way, right?
Yeah.
Like of course if you're building Wild, you would want your users to use Wild, but
Mhm.
it's important you open it up to like everything
Yeah,
else as well
for
so they
sure.
actually
Like,
truly have that choice, right? So I love
so
that. I'm
some
so glad
some alpha
that
for you is
you
like
think
it's coming much sooner than you anticipate. So like yeah, we'll be launching multi-currency tipping pretty soon. Not Degen, but yeah, other coins.
that's amazing. I'm so glad that you guys are thinking in that direction. Like I know there's like higher and
That's
stuff as well, right?
speculative.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. Okay, that's amazing. But I'm also curious, like I know when I started using it,
Mhm.
um, I immediately just got hooked into I got hooked into it. I did not think I would, but I
Yeah.
was like, wait, this is so fun. I like
Mhm.
seeing people win. I want to
Yeah.
support them even if it's in like the smallest way possible, which I
Yeah.
really like didn't feel with Friend Tech and any other social betting apps, right? So really props to you on like building out that whole UX in such a way that it feels like this positive sum game. And I'm curious, like with Wild, right? Of course, now I think I use Wild more than I do use Degen because I think my Degen allowance
Nice.
is like five. But Wild is so much more. It's very fun, right? And I'm curious, like,
Mhm.
what is the mechanics behind it, right? Of course, Degen has a
Yes.
financial value to it. Is that the same case with Wild? How does the
It's not
tokenomics work
right
with it?
now. Like right now, it's that there's no token associated with it. I can't comment on the future. That's what my lawyers told me before I actually do it.
Okay.
If I do it, so yeah. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, like, there's always going to be like one thing that is going to be different from like Degen. What I can say is like it's going to be an app, an ecosystem that is like there's going to be an app that actually like where you can come and spend your wild. Now there are interesting things coming as you can bet on things and you can do all sort of things that sort of creates some value for the points or maybe token if it is in the future, so that it's always balanced out. So it's going to
yeah,
be a financialized model plus an product that goes along with it.
yeah, I agree. The tokenomics here is interesting just because, like, when Degen started, because it has that financial value to it,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff people were starting to post, they were trying to farm for tips, right? Like, I want money, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
in both ways it was kind of a good and bad thing, right? Good way in the sense that it kind of forces you to put out good content so you do get those tips that you want in return. So it is a sort of an incentive mechanism there, but at the same time, like if it gets too addictive, like all people are going to want is to farm degen.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see like how wild plays out, right? Even if it
Yeah.
doesn't have that financial value, right?
Mhm.
Some sort of gamification there as an incentive.
Yep.
Yeah.
So one thing that we're already like, trying to imbibe in the users is like, if you do actions like buying the tickets, you get higher allowances. If you do things like casting from the client, you get higher allowances. So in a way, it is being used to drive the product adoption that we want in turn, which is going
Hmm.
to support, all sort of things that we can do with Wild. So that is one, and yeah, it's an interesting problem to solve. Like I think there are two parts to it. One is how do you distribute it, and second, how do you accrue value to it. Both of them
Put
are
value
very
to it.
interesting problems to solve. Yeah, I think it's going to be a continuously like learning process how we allocate tips, and you have to always stay on your toes to make this
Well,
work.
yeah.
Not let farmers outsmart you, but at the same time also accrue value to where you want.
The good part is that all these other tokens walked
Hmm.
so you can now run. So like there's a lot of learnings from these past tokens,
Yeah.
right, that can be taken account here. So honestly, these mechanisms are just going to get better and better and more highly aligned with the actual goal here, right? So I'm really
Yes.
excited for this. And honestly, it's something I like to think about incentive alignment a lot.
Hmm.
So I'm going to continue to think about wild is always something I keep thinking about here in terms of
Right.
like how do you make this possibly like one of the most like aligned tokens without having to compromise for like
Yeah.
stuff in the other direction of it, right? So
Yeah.
that's interesting. And you've been seeing like a lot of adoption, right? Like I'm curious, like how has like, of course, public has received it very well, but it's
Mhm.
been a while since you've launched. So how is like, what have you been noticing so far on Wild?
So like when we so the backstory is like we built this in like from ideation to just like first launch in like 4 weeks, and the idea was just to put it out and see and gauge what the public reception is, and which like I was basically split between, do people like to speculate more on like you can buy any key and you can buy fractionalized keys, would people be like gravitated towards the speculation more or more towards the idea of a crypto native client where you have values
Mhm.
alignment and where you have native tipping. And to my surprise, it was the client, and it got like
Oh,
way more, like it got like way more positive feedback than I expected, and that like that was like shocking to me, and that is shocking to me to present date, and it's becoming more and more clear with feature requests coming in or the kind of feedback that is coming in that people actually like and want more of it, which is like a more
yeah.
fun gamified client. So yeah, that's the
Yeah,
direction we're working on. Yeah.
gamified client, love it. Yeah, I started actually using it a lot more. Just I want to get more in the habit of using it as the client. Of
Yeah.
course, like you're gonna have that friction point because people are so used to like the UI
Yes.
of Warpcast, but
Mhm.
because I love the whole tip integration and like now this quality control that you integrated, like that is making me like go more towards the actual wildcard as a client. And of course, like I do you I'm curious, do you use like Warpcast mainly on your mobile or web?
I use it mostly on web, and that was the thing I was trying to do. Like I wanted the Wild app on web, and that's coming soon as well.
Oh, okay. Wow, I think that was a tiny alpha drop there. But that, if you, game changer, once that web client's out, game changer. I'm so excited. Um, and you know what I really started noticing, or like what I think would be really cool is I've noticed, obviously not I, but like generally you see people love it when you're able to do stuff in groups, right? So you're an FBI, of course, and I'm so happy to highlight you as like an FBI builder. So FBI represent. But and also yeah, Wildcard is pretty much like an FBI production at this point, right? Like Rahul helped you all
Yeah.
with the design,
Yeah.
right? Wow, amazing. See guys, look at these amazing shit from FBI.
Yeah. Go
um,
FBI. That
but
was
going
like pretty
back
much
to
like my intro to like Warpcast as well. Like that was a group I
FBI.
went to like learn about it, and that's like where I had like a couple of contractors to do some initial work and everything. So yeah, that's pretty much the place to start. It's the amazing place to start.
Yeah, FBI builders are truly on top. um, yeah, so I think going back to like what I was mentioning about people liking to do stuff as groups, right? even if it's like, because I think right now there's not a lot on chain that enables you to do stuff together. Like it's more of off chain coordination. You
Hmm.
see this in FBI, right? I really love when you're able to do stuff together, right? Take the high running challenge, for example. Like, yes, of course, I
Yes.
run by myself, but it's not as fun unless you
Hmm.
do it with a group, right? Even though it's like across the world and online, that coordination
Yes.
is still there. You see that in FBI with like Lakshmi Chit Fund, LCT, right? Betting together.
Yeah.
So I feel like this sort of mechanism on Wildcard, in terms of supporting each other, would be amazing, right? Like,
Yep.
take FBI, for example. Like, an amazing builder on FBI. Let's say we as FBI really want to hype them up. How can we do so?
Hmm.
We can go on Wildcard and all just buy the card at the same time,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that just feels a lot more authentic to me. From an intuition standpoint, it feels a lot more authentic than just going on their cast and like tipping them,
Yeah.
right? It's just because
Totally. Yeah.
like the tipping versus like buying of the card, it's like the
Hmm.
buying of the card really gives that I believe in you, like you as a person. And so this is my way of supporting you rather than like here's my allowance.
Yes.
So I'm really excited. Like, do you see that coming into Wildcard as well? Like that
For
sort
sure.
of
Yeah. So
capability?
one of my learning was like from zero x people, as you asked earlier, was like, people behave and like behave as a social tribe, and there are two reasons why people instantaneously ape into shit. Like one is like they do the analysis and they see and everything, and the second instantaneous thing is like, if you see four or five of your friends doing something, that's like the highest value point that anyone can give you, and then people just like put in zero point 0.1 ETH or 1 ETH into something that I know that four of my friends did this today. I can just like, without even looking at what is the coin, put some money in, and this is actual people that we're talking about. So it's one level up. So imagine in your feed seeing that four of your friends bought this ticket, and that's going to be the discovery point for
Yeah.
the person, and that's like a global validation that you believe in him.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like of course we all hype each other up in this in the chat, and that itself
Mhm.
feels so nice. Now if you
Yeah.
translate that to an on-chain thing, it's the equivalent of buying the card, right? So I'm really excited. That's I'm just thinking like another cool thing is if you have like a wall of love on each page where everyone can just like send over like quick notes like Karan,
Yeah.
I really appreciate stuff you're building, and there's just kind of a anyway, but that's just like a fun thing from a
No, no,
social
keep them coming.
standpoint.
Yeah, that's right. We might build it
Yeah,
at
I'm
some
sorry.
point.
But yeah, that's this is super super exciting, and I'm curious. Like, did you just start using Wildcard now as like your client instead of Warpcast?
So there are like, I go to Warpcast again for chat. That is something that's like a big
The
one.
chat.
Yeah, the chat. So now there are two things that could be possibly done about it. One is that Warpcast opens it up for other clients to like integrate into Warp, like Farcaster, makes it Farcaster chat, or we'll have to implement our own chat and get enough people in and provide a better chat experience, which
Hmm.
is a hard pull out. So like, that's like the big
Okay.
one, and yeah,
So
but
what
yeah,
did you
that's
see? Yeah, sorry, continue.
sorry, yeah, that's the probably the biggest one. Like why I
The
keep on
chat,
going back
right?
to chat.
That makes a lot of sense. Is that like so? What did you see from? What do you think is missing from Warpcast currently that you want to like address in Wildcard apart from like I know you mentioned like the quality
Mhm.
and discoverability, but apart from that, is there anything else that bothers you about Warpcast at the moment?
Um, Tipping was one. Being able to tip in the UI, see my allowance. Like I have to find a frame or go to a website to check my allowance. I have to find a frame to check who I tipped. Is the tip valid or not? How many tips have I received? And all these. Like the whole
Mm,
tipping ecosystem is fragmented and out there. If I have to buy cards or if I have to do on these things, I have to go on side apps and do it. And then you talk about things like Pearl or betting on
yeah,
social capital values of a caste, or doing more native things via act. Like I'm a big fan of what frames started as a movement, which is being able to integrate anything into Farcaster. But I think there are some elements that clearly have product market fit, which should be moved up to the UI layer into Farcaster
hmm,
rather than just being an action or a frame. so that it's a much better experience. There is still a latency of like 1 to 2 seconds whenever I'm trying to use a frame or use a forecaster action. So how I see it working is like, all these things, these apps can come and get like native UI done inside of Wildcard, and the user can choose what kind of native UI they want to keep, like plug and play components, and they're able to
Oh,
get the whole crypto native experience. Like if you want to see transactions, you can put it in. If you want to see Pearl in some world or Pearl like game, you can just put it on the side and just see it over there. So that's like the future vision, that all these things that are taking PMF on podcast, you build them as native things on Wildcard.
yeah, I agree there. And another thing from my point of view, like my biggest problem with Warpcast is like there is no proper way to like really interact or like kind of reward the community in a certain way, right? Like you have to do it kind of in your own
Hmm.
sort of
Yeah.
coordination outside of the
Yes.
app. That's
Yep.
one. And two, I think it's very hard for like Warpcast, it's gone to such an extent that it's very difficult for some new people that don't know anything about webcast to come on here and start because it's already so like intimidating, right? And
Yeah.
yes, of course the builder energy is still very heavy on there, and I think we need to expand out of that to a degree, which it's still going on slowly by slowly. Like you see a lot more artists in the game and like
Yes.
other stuff apart from builders, which is amazing to see. And I know you mentioned like that crypto native experience for wild. Is this something you want to address where you're able to like bring in more folks outside of the crypto experience into Wildcard? Like how do you optimize the experience for them so it's not so intimidating?
Yes. So, like, I was talking to a crypto native friend today, and his feedback was like, "Podcast is kind of boring for me." Now, he's a guy who's
Mm-hmm.
sitting on Telegram chats or in on X and like super crypto native. I think just content or just like, sorry, what we have created with podcast is great in terms of a great builder community, and it's like the best place for a builder to be. Like I got distribution where I could have not gotten it on X or somewhere else. It's sort of best for that use case, but if like a true degen comes in, they don't see the kind of activity that they want to see, which is, hey, what is going up, what is being traded, and just like more games and more flashy things. You can
Yeah.
call it that. So what I'm trying to address with Wild is somewhere like, it's a client that is optimized for more things that are happening around you, and they're more financialized and there are more numbers. So if you are just like scrolling your feed, you can also go and see who's buying tickets, selling tickets, do some things over there. In the future, you'll be able to do group bets. That's another alpha drop. You just said like in FBI, you like to do that on the side. So that should be something like on the side. You should be able to bet on cast or bet on certain things or polls and all those
Yeah.
things. And going one step further, there would be things like you can go into a channel. Let's say it's a degen token channel, and there should be native integrations of who holds how much degen, what is the degen price. If someone is casting something, you should be able to see that okay, this guy is casting about degen. He also holds 100,000 degens in his wallet, so this guy is important, or somewhere it can be ranked by that in also as well. So just like having that experience unlocks more things you can do financially. Like you can say, hey, if this is a whale who's bullish on it, who's buying more, I could buy more, and just like, and then they
Yeah.
go towards a different mode and try to get some alpha out and do more trades and everything.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And there's two things that just popped up as thoughts. Like the first one, right? Like if I'm like new to the crypto ecosystem, right, and I want to start using Warpcast, you your first in I guess gateway was FBI, right? And FBI
Yeah.
always is always so fun, right?
Yeah.
Because your first kind of thing was into FBI, and like
Mhm.
okay, everyone around me here, it's so fun. I really like the vibes here. I'm going to start using Barcaster because I've already made these friends on this kind of chat
Mhm.
and in this community anyway. So now I have something to interact with on Farcaster, right? So
Mhm.
that pre-step I think is very but necessary in terms of like kind of making that as an experience for new users, right? And because now that you've introduced this discoverability feature, how can we make discoverability more fun? Like
Mhm.
community in a community sense, right? How can I discover communities that I could potentially vibe with, join them, and then start my journey from there? Because like when you find people you already vibe with, then is like that is my tipping point into like, okay, now I want to start using this. That's like one thing I just like popped into my head as a thought. And then well, now I'm forgetting the second one, but I think that's like the major point anyway across both thoughts that I did have was the community
Nice.
aspect of it.
That's a great one. And so if you look at the experience of someone who's coming into Vodcast today, they get a standard list, almost a standard list that they follow, and the kind of content they're seeing is same. I think it's less based on their interests and more based on the globally trending things that are coming into Vodcast. Now I know that they're trying to figure out an algorithm with which they can rank things and show you your interests, but I think channels is a proxy to it. So one way I could see it working is either you know some people who are on Farcaster, you go and buy their tickets, or we create some equivalent of tickets for, like, as we have tickets for people, we do something for values or channels. And then you can go and say how strongly I align with a certain value, and we can recommend people who also align with certain values, let's say that same as you, or who also have tickets that are same as you. So you can know, like, okay, these are the people that are interested in, like, could be potentially friends. You have a certain
Yeah.
allocation file to go and say, like, hey, I want to, you can just go out and buy their ticket and say, like, hey, I want to reach out to you or
Oh,
something like
yes. That is also
that.
another interesting. Okay, I remember my second thought. The second thought was basically what I'm seeing now is like we're seeing, you know how, okay, you know how a lot of tech brands nowadays are like basically like a lifestyle at this point, like Notion as a
Yeah.
lifestyle, right? We're seeing this very same trend with like stuff on chain higher as a lifestyle. I'm seeing wild now as a lifestyle. Like I think I was scrolling through the channel, I saw this really cute photo of this family wearing dinosaur costumes. Like, yeah, we're wild. So that culture I think is
Yes.
very important that that stays alive, especially in the wild app, because that's just because that small culture like as a fun thing it would make me want to go and like try to integrate myself into the high or sorry wild ecosystem. I'll tell you,
Yes.
because higher had that vibe, like okay, higher as a mindset, higher as a lifestyle, I could
Hmm.
relate to it a lot more. I'm like, oh, okay. What else is, how can I be higher in life, right?
Yeah.
How do I be more
Yeah.
wild in life, right? How do I
Yeah.
incentivize like that culture? Um, DGen also is a culture. And I
Yes.
think that culture aspect really ties into this community thing I was talking about as that first point, kind of conjoining the two to get more people into the space. And I think that is like kind of the way forward here. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, like this is such
MFers
interesting
is a big
stuff,
one.
right?
Yeah, MFers is a big one right now. Like, I think, like, on-chain assets, NFTs, and tokens both act as certain communities that you get instantly introduced to, and
Yeah.
you can do stuff there. Yeah, it's yet to be seen. Like, I really want to do more. So if you have like some more ideas around, they have a channel right now to talk to each other or to get to know to each other, but like there should be more ways, more interactive ways, more inclusive ways for people to just like have something or jam on something. So, except other than a chat or just a channel, like it's curious to see what we can do there.
Yeah. And it would be really like interesting if I could talk to my card holders. Like for them to give me personalized feedback, I think would be really helpful, right? Because I'm always going one-on-one chats with people I know that are close to me, like, give me feedback, give me feedback, give me feedback. Like you have your wild chat as well, right? For the feedback
Yep.
from your early adopters. So like that similar aspect for like my card holders would be fun as well, just so that truly there is it kind of takes that next step forward to helping me like drive myself forward, right? That
Yeah.
chat aspect is important, but I know for you that's coming. I'm just
Yeah.
sharing my thoughts here. But yeah.
Yes. I think if I do private chats, then people would just think it's friend tech or it's like some other app. I think probably a better idea is like they can DM you and it shows. Uh,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's necessarily it needs to be a group or not, but
Yeah.
the DMs can get prioritized if they hold your tickets and they're able to just like reach out to you and talk more. So then a way of reaching
Yeah.
out to someone becomes like you can attach while to a message, or you can attach if you hold a ticket of that person, it just gets prioritized in your inbox.
Yeah. Because like let's say I hold your card, Karan, and I'm like, hey, I think this would be really cool if Karan did this, right? So if I want to tell
Yeah.
you that, like of course I can
Yes.
cast it, but yeah.
It's interesting.
Oh, this is so interesting. Like this really, I'm just thinking, right? When Farcaster just started off, like I started something called Coffee Bot, which would
Hmm.
like basically randomly pair people. Like my goal was to like
Yeah.
get more people in the ecosystem to know each other. So CoffeeBot would randomly pair you with people one on one to do coffee chats with. And that was working very well in a small community. Of course, like it ended up like dropping off because it became way too big at that point.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing this very similar trend coming into play with Wild as well.
Mm,
How do I
yeah.
discover more people that are in the same boat as me? Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, this is sorry, I'm just on a train of thoughts here, but so apart from Wild, like what else has been like your favorite clients so far on Farcaster?
Only Webcast. That's the only one I've used so far.
Oh, you don't use like Supercast?
I don't know.
No, I don't either, but I'm curious. Okay. Nice, nice. All right, very cool stuff. So I do have like a few rapid fire questions for you to like um close
Shoot.
this off because this has been like a very fun conversation. I know you're gonna be taking a lot of this away. I hope to see some of this like intervene in the Wild app. When is the
Yes,
by the
for
way,
sure.
when is the web client dropping? Is there any information on that?
In the next 3 to 4 days.
Wow, that's fast. Wow, that's a major. All right, we need to release this episode before that. Build up the hype for Wild.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. All right, so I have a few questions for you, okay? It's just gonna be fun rapid fire style round. Okay.
Mhm.
You watch Coffee with Karan, so you should know. Oh my god, fireside chat with Karan. Love it. We're gonna call this round Coffee with Karan. Okay. Coffee with Karan rapid fire round, guys. Okay, ready? All right, first question, Karan. Bangalore or SF?
SF.
Why?
It's the OG place. Like everything is 10x there. I think the density of talent, the density of networks, and everything else.
Okay, valid. All right, second question. Would you rather have 50,000 DGen or the OG NFT?
Dishan right now. Yeah.
DGen.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Um, who are your top three favorite kind of builders, artists, like top three favorite people that you've been having your eyes on right now in the Warpcast space?
Hmm. Interesting. So definitely watch. Like it's amazing what he has pulled with like just a single person building supercast. That's super amazing. Undefined. The guy is just
Mm.
like shipping crazy stuff, and I love what he does. And like at the rate at which he ships, and we had a couple of conversations back and forth on casts. That's has been super amazing. And then the third one would be like all of our caster team. Like this been super
Oh
responsive.
yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely agree. Highly agree on those three. That's amazing. Um, okay, next question. If not, like what you're doing right now at Warpcast, let's say
Mhm.
Warpcast didn't exist, what would you be doing like with your life?
I'll probably be doing something on Solana or Ton. Like those are
Oh,
like I think the two hot places right now. If I had to choose, like that's where most of the decents are, and Ton's got great distribution. I think if not Base and Farcaster, those would have been my choices.
okay. Wow, you're a true degen. Love that. Love that. Okay. If you could host FarCon anywhere in the world, right, outside of the US, where would you want to host it?
Um, Spain.
Spain. Okay,
Yeah,
lovely. Maybe we should do FarCon Spain. I've never been to Spain. Have you been there?
yeah, yeah. I spent like 3 months there. I love that place. That's like my favorite
Okay, that
place.
makes sense. All right, we're counting on you to host FarCon Spain, Karen, okay? Um,
Yeah,
counting on you. All right.
we'll do a wild con.
La- yeah. Okay, last question. If you, let's say, could pick one chain out of like the entire crypto ecosystem to build on for the rest of your life, like what would it be and why?
It's a tough one. Like I'm split between the three that I mentioned, like Base, Solana, and Ton. So different reasons for each of them. So yeah, Base because I really align with the values of Coinbase and the builder community there.
Yeah.
Solana because that's where the decent volume is right now, and Ton because that's where it could potentially be in the future. A lot of it. So yeah, sorry for the boring answer. That's what my like
No,
that's like do what people want. That's like what why
yeah.
it drilled into me.
No, that totally makes sense. Solid answers. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen. We are going to do a Firehouse session. I know I've been literally bugging you about this. We're going to do a Firehouse session with the wild folks and make it a wild session. It'll be fun. But this
Sounds
was
good.
amazing, Karen. It was so lovely chatting with you. I'm so happy to learn about this entire journey, and props to you for Wild and your Wild team as well. And I can't wait to see the future of Wild. And big shout out to your web client coming out soon. I'm very excited for that.
Having me,
All the
man.
best for
Big
that.
props
But
and
yeah, thank
great
you for
idea.
having.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is
Have a good
amazing.
one.
All right, I'll see you soon then.
Yeah.
Okay.